of my assurance that during the COVID lockdown period, we will regularly interact with you and share with you all the steps that we are taking, steps that we were contemplating, and large initiatives in order to deal with a situation which, at least in our lifetime, has had no precedent. We have all dealt with viruses from the days that I was accredited as ambassador to the UN in Geneva, in New York. I was accredited to the World Health Organization, and I'm reasonably familiar with how the international community responded to viruses, pandemics, SARS, H1N1, swine flu, Ebola, etc. But the COVID-19 pandemic, if you compare it to the other situations that I have mentioned, is in many ways unique. And in fact, the only situation you can compare COVID-19 to is the Spanish flu of 1918. SARS had a mortality rate of 17%. We have been successful in India. We started with a mortality rate of 3% or so, but we brought it substantially down. But it is the very comprehensive and effective measures that the Prime Minister took, which has saved us from a consequence that could have been devastating. Today, because of the lockdown, we've had the time to produce a health infrastructure, and I'll come to Lifeline Udan in a few minutes. We were able to get other systems in place. Today, our positive rate is what, in the vicinity of 5% or so. We are testing in very large numbers, and the graph is not only stable, but I think coming down. This gives us the confidence, the effective management of the response to COVID to deal with civil aviation also with a sense of confidence. On 6 March, when we met for the first time, I acquainted you with the measures we had taken to screen passengers coming in at the international airports, thermal screening and other measures which we took. On 2nd April, when we met, we spoke about Lifeline Udan, and I want to share with you the figures on Lifeline Udan by any yardstick, no matter which way you look at it. These are very impressive figures. We brought in something like 1,500 plus tons of medical equipment and other medical supplies which were required to be imported from other countries, and Air India played a very important role, as did some of our other carriers, but the burden was essentially borne by Air India. Domestically, Lifeline Udan also produced and necessitated a total kilometrage coverage of 5,45,685 kilometers. 588 total flights were carried out, and the total cargo load carried domestically was 940.29 tons. And I stand corrected, the total medical cargo brought from outside was not 1,500 plus. Yes, it was 1,500 plus, but it is 1,928 tons. So if I have to round off, I should round off at 2,000, not at 1,500. Medical supplies which were sent by us to foreign countries in our neighborhood and other parts of the world was in excess of 30 tons. Now, as you will see, it's only a country which has its systems in place, which has clear, decisive political decision-making and direction, and where you were able to ensure that from PPE masks, from PPE kits, masks, ventilators, which were in very short supply or not possible, we not only transported them to all parts of the country, but if I may also add, we ramped up our own production. So today, since I'm talking about civil aviation and I want to, for a moment, go away from my role as a member of the GOM on health and COVID along with Secretary, but let me come to the civil aviation part. So I think there's 550,000 kilometers which were carried, and the result is there to see. I mean, in the beginning there was some dislocation, some people complained, some people who did not need PPE kits also asked for them, but very quickly the system fell in place. And today, I think we are not only in a position to say that we have consolidated our position as the pharmacy of the world. We were already suppliers of generics, but in terms of COVID-related medication and equipment, we are also now major suppliers to other countries in the world. On 5th May, when we met, I gave you the outlines of the Vande Bharat mission. And the starting point of the Vande Bharat mission was that the Minister for External Affairs was receiving requests, urgent pleas from many of our citizens stranded in different parts of the world, saying that they needed to be brought back, either because they had lost their jobs on account of the pandemic, or they needed to be deported, and as deportees. You see, on 23rd March, I should have said, but I know you are familiar with this, there was a complete lockdown, not only here, we stopped civil aviation, but so did most other countries. So if you were traveling and you were, let's say, on a holiday, or you'd lost your job, you needed to come back. Again, and I think I've shared this with you earlier, but I have no hesitation in repeating myself. When I asked Jaishankarji, how many people do you think will need to be covered in this mission? And I was only asking the question because on the civil aviation side, we have to make the arrangements, provide the platforms for this carriage. So he said, well, the Navy will join in, maybe 1 or 2 surface platforms, but about 190,000 people. I must share with you something I've already told you. I had serious doubts about this 190,000 figure, because I knew this was the figure which was suggested, or rather which suggested itself, because those are the number of people who registered. Now, in March, April, no one had any idea as to how many people would like to avail of this facility. Anyway, when we started the operation, we were clear it would be much more than 190,000. And Secretary and my other senior colleagues here on the dais will bear with me. In our internal meetings, I said, prepare for many times that number. And Vande Bharat, maybe Rajiv, CMD Air India, can tell you later, but when we started in the first week, we started on a modest scale. I think we brought back something like 14,000 people, 12,600 people. How much? 12,708 people, phase 1. From what, 64 countries? Or 64 countries. 64, memory is still okay. Today, I want to fast forward. I will happily answer questions on Vande Bharat. Today, I can say with confidence, don't know what the last night's figures are. The number of people brought back is over 2 million. Brought back and taken out is over 2 million. So where 1.9 lakhs and where you are in excess of 20 lakhs. So that gives you again some idea about the scale on which the Vande Bharat has operated. I used to be asked questions, when are you starting international flights? When are you? I suspect at that stage we had not got our narrative properly across. These are international flights. These are flights between India and other countries which have entered into bilateral civil aviation arrangements with us, or which are called, and we have 16 of them in place already. But we have other arrangements with some countries which are not formally listed as bubbles, but where, because of their own domestic reasons, we are carrying out flights. And they may be formalized. So Vande Bharat is actually a bridging arrangement between a situation of complete lockdown and no activity and complete opening up of civil aviation. So again, I think full marks to the Prime Minister, under whose clear inspiration, with whose inspiration, clear direction, he said, look, an Indian citizen stranded abroad has a claim on us, and that it is our duty. We could have been inward looking and say, bhai, ho gaya lockdown, hum na. And Vande Bharat flight started before domestic flights. I want to make this a point. So I don't know what the number of Indians abroad is. I spent 40 years in the Foreign Service. I've heard figures like 25 million Indians outside. Not all of them are Indian passport holders. Some of them, but many of them are Indian origin and feel very strong ties to the country. But I can tell you, the Prime Minister's decision that Indians stranded abroad have a claim on us, or his decision that Indians who are here and need to go back to reclaim their jobs, we rose to that occasion. And I think we are now in phase 7. I don't know if 6 continues or 7. 6 continues, and Rajiv would be happy to answer specific questions on that. On 21st May, when we met, I spoke to you about resumption of domestic civil aviation. And I want to relay a story which I may have, maybe I tend to repeat myself, but I got a call from one of the airline operators, and it was early April. And recall that we had stopped domestic civil aviation around 23rd or 25th of March. And he asked me, should we plan for the year ahead on the presumption that there will be no revenue till September? That was a question. I immediately responded saying, that is not my analysis. In fact, I believe that we will be able to start domestic civil aviation in the month of May. We are speaking in April. And that by September, you will have a substantial amount of traffic already in place. I must say, this is an airline operator. He was polite to me, but and he didn't contradict me. But he told me later, you were right, but I had my misgivings. We started on 25th May. I had told him we'll start around 15th May. That was our internal assessment. You know, you have to navigate with the health authorities, you have to navigate with the state governments, and the state governments have a very important role to play, because as the Prime Minister said, in our system of cooperative federalism, that fight against corona has to be not only conducted from Delhi, but it has to be done at the district level, at the state level. The state governments have a very important role to play, and the Prime Minister himself has been talking to state governments, getting their views, and then we've been setting templates. But look, we started on 25th May, the passenger traffic on 25th May, as a result of 33% slow calibrated opening up, was 30,000 passengers, I think, to begin with. I'm not consulting my statistics, but my colleagues will correct me. The figure on 2nd October or 3rd October was 1,76,000. I had always said that the 50% mark will be the difficult one to reach, because you have to deal not only with the behavior of the virus, you have to deal with restrictions imposed by state governments, quarantine, other restrictions, but once you cross the 50% mark, it's going to gather. So I want to take this opportunity to tell you, it is my assessment, all other things being equal, and Secretary and I have a running bet on this as to whose figures are right, but we are both more or less in the same band, and I'm going to defer to his figure. His figure is that by the end of October, we will be at 200,000. My own figure is that faster, but today, for the sake of the press conference, I'll say his figure 200,000. Pre-COVID was 300,000. Now I'm going to take a step further. Diwali will be on 15th November, I think thereabouts. Between Diwali and the end of the year, we will not only reach pre-COVID levels of 300,000, but my expectation is going into the first quarter of next year, we will go past that also. Why do I feel comfortable and confident to make this assessment? When you are in a lockdown position, people can either decide that they don't have anything to do with air travel. I think very early in the day, we were able to demonstrate that amongst all the forms of transportation, air travel is one of the safest. I choose my words carefully. Nothing is totally safe in today's day and age. It may not be entirely safe for me to be in a room with so many people, but one has to intelligently take some risks, and with the ventilation systems inside the aircraft, nozzle, roof down, ventilation, etc., I think internationally it's been established that airline travel is relatively safe. And as we have opened up first 33%, in the first few weeks, we were not even getting the 33% utilization. Then we slowly opened up to 50, then to 60, 65 or so. Today, we are past 150,000 on any day. Even when you have a bad day, you're at 155, 160. But I think end of October and then the festive season, and now people are beginning to travel also, and I see this from airline associations and others who carry out these surveys. What are our plans going forward? Well, we are presently at the 60-65% opening, but I can share with you that our internal thinking is that we will watch it for another week or 10 days, and we will have no hesitation after that, if the figures continue to be healthy, to open up civil aviation to 75% of pre-COVID levels. Exact dates, etc. Why do I say this? You know, Mumbai is a classic case to study. Pre-COVID, I think Mumbai used to have what, 1,000 flights a day, 500 arrivals, 500 departures? 1,000 movements, yeah. 1,000 movements, that's 500 arrivals, 500. Mumbai was also very slow to start off. We got in the beginning only 25 and 25. So I used to negotiate with the Chief Minister. I was more unsuccessful than successful, but I kept trying. Slowly we got it raised to 50 arrivals and 50 departures. I recall seeing a message from the state government that they are taking it up to 30% level. 30% levels means 300 plus. So if we are moving from 100 to 300, that's a huge jump. And if my inputs are right, those additional 200 flights are now being put in place. They have not been availed of as yet, which means your figure of 1,76,000, which we had 7 days ago, about a week ago, that will easily be above 200,000. And once you're at 200,000, you're at 60-66% of that, then, you know, even as a cautious minister, I say, if you're 60-66%, you'll get 75 by, you're going to open up and you will get your pre-COVID figures. Last time, then on 20th June, we spoke on overall civil aviation scenario, exactly covering all these issues. On 16 July, we spoke on drone operations, an update on Vande Bharat. Meanwhile, you know, it's not been easy. We had this whole challenge on the middle seat. We were able to navigate our way through that. Then we had this, it was not a challenge for me. I was very clear from day go that if somebody collects fares, advance fares, and you don't carry out the flight, you have to pay it back. So DGCA, who should have been sitting here, but because of the DIAS connection, he came up with a very good plan with the ministry. And my assessment is that the court by and large accepted in that plan. And so that's the law now. And so we've been able to deal with that situation. And the details, if you need, Secretary will mention. There are also issues relating to Krishi Udan, which again is a very major initiative and I think has great potential. We also have air safety was an issue which is of concern, and I can just share some statistics with you because, you know, a lot of people who, after active professional lives, style themselves as experting, and not always, I mean, they have a point, I respect that, everybody is in a democracy, anybody can say anything, write anything, but some figures I want to tell you. I've looked at scheduled commercial aircraft accidents, that's aircraft above 5,700 kgs, per million flights, I've looked at the world figure, India, USA, UK, Australia, and Canada. Let me just give you the figure of 2019, okay? The global figure is 3.02, India is 0.82, USA is 4.09, UK is 6.42, Australia is 2.72, Canada is 4.45. Then I compare the Indian figure from 2014 to 2019. It's very interesting. Global figure for accidents per million flights, 3.06, India is 2.8. 2015, 2.82, India 5.1. 2016, 2.21, India 3.3. Then comes the fall. 2017, 2.44, 1. 2018, 2.61, 0.8. 2019, 3.02, 0.82. Now, what we have done on air safety in the last few years, that is brought out. Now, again, a few things on air safety. This is reflected from the fact that the US safety regulator, which had downgraded India to Category 2 status in 2014, upgraded us to Category 1 in April 2015 after significant steps were taken by DGCA to ensure air safety. India is currently placed in Category 1, countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia in Category 2. Indian skies are safe. Effective implementation of safety standards by DGCA has resulted in considerable improvement from 57% in 2017 to 72% in 2018. And I want to finally conclude by that, DGCA received the ICAO Council President Certificate for this achievement in the 2019 Assembly. I believe we were there at that stage of time. Yeah, you were. Okay. Now, I am going to conclude with this. We have enough time. I'm open to any question. But first, I want to, airport privatization and some other, I think I should deal with that for a minute. One of the issues which is often raised is what have we done for the airlines in this, during this period. Where is that sheet? Yeah. In January 2020, the fuel throughput charge was rationalized. Airport operators will not directly put this charge on airlines. Rather, Airport Economic Regulatory Authority of India, AERA, will regulate this fees. Central excise duty on aviation turbine fuel, or ATF, was reduced from 11% in October 2018. The GST on MRO was reduced from 18% to 5% with full input tax credit from 1st April 2020. This will attract the MRO business to India, leading to a lot of savings for airlines in maintenance and creation for jobs. Till now, only 60% of airspace was available for civil aviation movement. Now these restrictions are proposed to be eased out so that civilian flight operations will become more efficient and save time and money for passengers and airlines. This airspace rationalization is likely to save rupees 1,000 crore per annum for airline. The proposal to bring ATF under the GST ambit is before the GST Council, which has representation from states as well. And finally, privatization of airports. Only yesterday, the paperwork, or rather signature was done for Jivar Airport between the concerned authorities in UP and the Zurich Airport. Is it? Out of the 6 airports for which bids were invited in the first round, the concessionaire agreement was signed in February 2020 for 3, Ahmedabad, Lucknow and Mangaluru. Due to COVID-19, the entity concerned cited force majeure and filed for extension in March 20 and sought time till February 2021. They have been given time for the remaining airports till 12 November 2020, and I'm confident that the agreement for those 3 airports will be signed as well. The other 3, Guwahati, Jaipur and Trivandrum, have also been approved for leasing out on PPP, and the letter of award has been issued to the concerned entity. We have now already moved to the next round of airports. At its board, the Board of the Airports Authority of India, on 5th September, recommendation was made to the Government of India for undertaking operations, management and development of another set of 6 airports. That is those, first we did 2 in 2006, Mumbai and Delhi in 2006. Then we invited bids in 2018, good 7 months before I became a minister on civil aviation. For 6, those 6 are now on target. 3 have already been given, the other 3 being given. Another 6, which are through public-private partnership, Varanasi, Amritsar, Bhubaneswar, Raipur, Indore and Trichy. Modalities for this are being worked out. It is expected that additional investment of around 13,000 crores will be made by private players in the 12 airports. And I just want to conclude by giving you one broad statistics. And I won't talk about the 6 airports which we did or the 6 which we are now going to do. 6 also I can give you. Because the then government decided to privatize Mumbai and Delhi airports, which constitute 33% of the traffic. The Airports Authority of India, as a result of that, till I think 2019 end, got an amount of 29,000 crores. It is that money, that 29,000 crores and whatever other resources they can raise, which has been utilized to develop the other airports in the country. That's very important. The 6 airports, of which we'll be completing now, if memory serves me right, they will produce 2,300 crores and an upfront payment of?
Upfront payment of about 1,000 crores in the first place.
1,000 crores and then another 1,300 crores upfront. Yes. And then, of course, and then there is a revenue sharing model, etc. So unless you privatize, and first you need to privatize in order to get scale, that scale and enhanced activity gives you an opportunity to increase your revenue, and that revenue increase, etc., helps you to develop the airport infrastructure. So I'm going to conclude with that. I'm going to ask my colleagues, starting with Secretary, if they would like to supplement this, and then we'll be open for questions. Pradeep.
Thank you, sir. On this occasion, I would just like to mention that we have reached a very important threshold at the moment. I would say a very important milestone. About 4.5 months back, when we opened up the domestic aviation, that was an important milestone, and today is the second important one. At that time, we had put in a huge amount of measures to ensure that civil aviation, particularly the travel by civil aviation, becomes absolutely, I would say, almost safe. And all these measures have been validated. And if you look back and see, in the past 4.5 months, with the ridership has gone up, has increased. The passenger traffic has increased from 29,000 on first day to almost touching 1.8 lakhs, and a jump of virtually 6 times. Now this is quite unprecedented, and this also validates and it almost certifies that all the measures we took, the protective measures, the airlines, the airports, all of them took, they have been validated, and it has been established that these measures have really worked. The new normal, what we call the new normal, is that the passengers, when they travel through the airport, it's virtually contactless, it's paperless, people just walk in, it's 100% web check-in. No one could have ever imagined this about maybe 1 year or a couple of years back. So that's what we have achieved. Now, the increase from 50 to 100 is going to be faster, and that's a challenge before the airlines, and we had a detailed discussions with all the airports and the airlines yesterday only, where we said that now these protective measures have to be stepped up. Now, with passenger traffic increasing, ensuing festival season, year-end traffic, there would be more traffic on the airports as well as the airlines. So all these airports and airlines have been asked to take up special measures to ensure proper hand hygiene, to ensure proper, everyone wears not only the face mask, we have a second layer called the face shield. Now that's the second layer of protection, and of course maintaining social distance and all. So all this has been done, and now we are gearing up for round 2 or the second phase, when we'll rapidly grow from 50% to almost near normal. So that's what the importance of this threshold point at this moment is. And second thing, what we have seen in the past a couple of weeks is that we had a big challenge for the consumers, for the travelers whose fare, the tickets were not being refunded. So we had proposed a scheme, and the Honorable Supreme Court almost put a stamp on the scheme which was proposed by DGCA. It upheld that primarily the money has to be refunded. But it struck a very, very delicate balance between the interest of the consumers on one hand and the interest of the airlines also. In fact, it has been very nicely worded, saying that if we really squeeze the airlines at this point of time, nothing would be left. So this balance has been struck, and a very nice formulation has been given by the Honorable Supreme Court, as per which that if anyone traveled during lockdown, for lockdown, if you book a ticket, they were not supposed to do, that shall be given in cash. Post-lockdown, after 25th of May, if anyone cancels tickets, it is nothing to do with COVID, it shall be refunded as cash as per car. Only the special dispensation is that people having booked tickets before lockdown period, for lockdown period, which could not have been foreseen. In that case, the money can be transferred to credit shells. And there also, a lot of facilities have been given that these credit shells are transferable. Means if I have a credit shell, I can sell it off to anyone. Not only that, if airlines delay all these encashment, if a passenger is not able to travel, there is a system where an interest accrues on the credit shell. So the credit shell swells with passage of time. And third and most important is the deadline is 31st of March 2021. After that, entire amount shall be given in cash. So these are the two major developments which have taken place in the recent 2 weeks. So I will just say that we have reached a very important milestone and gearing up for the second step, a second major step, which will take us from 50% to 100%. So thank you very much. So maybe we'll take questions afterwards.